How does a soft-spoken American doctor end up at the center of Edwardian London's most sensational murder trial, trigger the world's first tech-powered ocean chase, and more than a century later still spark fierce debates over whether he was heroically framed or cold-bloodedly guilty? Dr. Hawley Harvey Crippen's story is a cocktail of celebrity nightlife, secret love affairs, pioneering wireless telegraphy, and a single torso in a coal cellar. It's a tale so gripping that newspapers sold out daily editions, cinema newsreels reenacted the chase before the trial even began, and modern DNA scientists are still arguing about what really happened in that modest terraced house on Hilldrop Crescent. If you think true crime plots peaked in the Netflix era, buckle up. Crippen's saga shows that viral manhunts and controversial courtroom science started long before smartphones or social media existed. And just when you decide whether Crippen was a monster or a martyr, fresh forensic twists yank the rug out again. But the frenzy began, as it so often does, with a marriage that looked picture perfect. To London's musical theatre crowd of 1909, Dr. Crippen and his wife Cora were the ideal power couple. He was the courteous American physician dispensing Johnson's homeopathic remedies. She was Belle Elmore, a vivacious mezzo-soprano who belted out popular numbers in smoky vaudeville halls. Their Camden townhouse boasted electric lighting, oriental rugs, and shelves of imported perfume, a showy upgrade from Crippen's Midwestern roots. Friends saw a convivial host and a glamorous hostess. Few glimpsed the cracks widening behind the velvet curtains. Cora dreamt of Covent Garden's stardom, but aged into chorus roles. Crippen, forever mild-mannered, funneled earnings into Cora's gowns and publicity photos while his own practice dwindled. The strain multiplied when he hired a slender, soft-spoken typist named Ethel Leneve. Gossip whispered that Dr. Crippen and Ethel shared long lunches and lingering glances. In truth, their bond had grown from office respect into clandestine romance, a fact Cora flaunted to humiliate her husband during dinner-party performances that ended in slammed doors. Money rows turned weekly. Accusations of infidelity flew both ways, yet in public they preserved the Edwardian illusion of marital harmony. By Christmas 1909, Cora threatened divorce, a social scandal that could ruin Crippen's livelihood and evaporate her hard-won stage reputation. Instead, she scheduled another music hall tour, telling friends she'd return triumphant. Ethel, meanwhile, confided to her sister that something will change soon, I shan't be a secretary forever. The emotional chessboard was set, pieces poised, and January's frosty nights sharpened every tension. But the fuse truly lit on February 1st, 1910, when Cora vanished, without a single goodbye. London policemen fielded missing person reports daily, but Belle Elmore's disappearance felt different. She'd skipped rehearsals, left her beloved Pomeranian behind, and abandoned half-packed trunks of feathered hats. Friends pressed Dr. Crippen for answers. He calmly claimed Cora had rushed to America after her sick brother summoned her. The story wobbled when telegram inquiries revealed the brother was perfectly healthy and waiting in San Francisco to hear from Cora himself. Suspicion escalated. Chief Inspector Walter Dew, already famous for chasing Jack the Ripper suspects, paid Hilldrop Crescent a friendly visit. The physician, ever courteous, offered tea and repeated his tale, adding that Cora had later telegrammed she felt happier in California and might never return. Dew noted two things. Crippen's hands trembled slightly when pouring sugar, and Ethel Leneve now flitted about the house wearing Cora's diamond brooches and silk kimonos. Dew left, and Crippen panicked. Within 48 hours, he sold furniture, emptied bank accounts, and, together with Ethel, disappeared. That single rash act screamed guilt louder than any rumor. Detectives tore up floorboards, prodded garden beds, and finally lifted cracked tiles in the coal cellar. Under a thin layer of lime, they found flesh, headless, limbless, sexless, but unmistakably human. Forensic pathologist Bernard Spilsbury detected traces of hyoscine, a scopolamine-based sedative Crippen had recently purchased for neuralgia. He also found a scar consistent with Cora's abdominal surgery, and tufts of bleached hair resembling hers. Newspapers christened the corpse the Hilldrop torso. Plaster busts of the accused, sold on street corners, hatpins shaped like tiny trunks spilled from novelty shops. Reporters stationed themselves outside Scotland Yard night after night. The mild doctor and his typist lover had morphed into the era's Bonnie and Clyde, except nobody knew where they'd fled. Facing ruin, Crippen moved from suburban cellar to a daring plan worthy of a dime store thriller. At Antwerp's docks, Crippen shaved his well-trimmed moustache, donning tortoiseshell spectacles and a felt cap. Ethel lopped her hair, wrapped bandages to flatten curves, and stepped into tweed +4s as Master John Robinson. They boarded the SS Montrose, a Canadian Pacific liner bound for Quebec, one of the slowest North Atlantic crossings, but crucially departing before authorities could circulate full descriptions. Life aboard Montrose felt tense, but hopeful. Crippen played chess with missionaries, tipping stewards too generously. Young Master Robinson lounged on deck, reading Strand magazine, careful to keep a pipe clenched, never smoked, to sell the masculine illusion. Yet Captain Henry Kendall, a former Royal Naval Reserve officer, possessed a Sherlockian eye. He noticed the father and son seldom conversed, that the boy's gaze lingered on his companion with affection more spousal than filial, and that the elder Robinson's polished dentistry betrayed a medical past. 3 days out of port, Kendall strode into the Marconi radio room, an innovation still so new passengers treated spark transmitters like magic lanterns. Kendall tapped a priority telegram to British authorities. Have strong suspicions that Crippen London cellar murderer and accomplice are among passengers disguised as father and boy. Suggest Inspector Board at Quebec. The operator shot the message across atmospheric hiss and Morse clicks. Land stations relayed it to Scotland Yard. It reached Chief Inspector Dew, who booked passage on the turbine-powered SS Laurentic, 20 knots to Montrose's 14. Dew's plan? Overtake the fleeing couple mid-Atlantic, masquerade as a pilot, and step aboard at Father Point before Montrose could dock. The manhunt had leapt from stagecoaches to cutting-edge radio waves. Yet Crippen and Ethel, unaware of the pulses crackling through the ether, believed freedom lay just beyond Canada's fog-shrouded coast. July 31st, 1910. Morning mist hugged the St. Lawrence River as Montrose slowed to pick up a local pilot. Captain Kendall summoned the disguised pair to the bridge, claiming immigration paperwork needed signatures. Into that cabin stepped Chief Inspector Dew, uniform hidden beneath a borrowed pilot coat. Accounts say Crippen's shoulders drooped the instant he saw Dew's eyes. "Thank God it's over," he murmured, unnaturally calm. Newsrooms across England received the wireless bulletin minutes later. Crippen captured at sea. The editions sold out before ink dried. Had the radio not existed, Crippen might have vanished into America's vastness. Instead, Marconi's invention turned the Atlantic into a transparent pond, making every ship a broadcast studio and every fugitive a potential headline. The return voyage aboard Laurentic became a floating courtroom. Passengers gawked while Ethel wrote tear-stained letters insisting on Crippen's innocence, and the doctor penned stoic diary entries praising Dew's gentlemanly conduct. Photographers aboard other liners tried to snap telephoto images as the two ships passed each other, proto-paparazzi moments now preserved in grainy archives. By the time Laurentic docked in Liverpool, crowds jammed the quays, cheering like spectators at a prize fight. Crippen stepped onto British soil, handcuffed yet composed, bowing politely to officials. But technology's triumph only set the stage for a courtroom drama that would move even faster and murkier than the chase. The Old Bailey trial opened October 18, 1910, under a crush of onlookers hungry for scandal. Newspapers rented entire blocks of seats, sketch artists sharpened pencils, and bookies gave odds on the verdict. Crippen, in impeccable frock coat, pleaded not guilty. Ethel Leneve watched from the gallery, veiled and trembling. Prosecutor Richard Muir painted Crippen as a calculating poisoner. He'd sedated Cora with hyoscine, dismembered her, buried the torso, then fled with his lover. Spilsbury's forensic testimony became legend. He displayed microscopic slides showing hyoscine crystals in the flesh and narrated anatomical clues proving the remains belonged to a middle-aged woman. Crippen's defense countered that the torso had no head, feet, or identifiable organs. How could anyone swear it was Cora? They argued the scar was actually fold tissue, the hair perhaps from a wig. Hyoscine could have leached from medical samples stored nearby. The jury retired only 27 minutes. Crippen stood rigid as the foreman pronounced guilty. Gasps shivered through the courtroom. Ethel collapsed. Judge Lord Alveston donned the black cap, sentencing Crippen to hang at Pentonville. Ethel was tried separately as an accessory, but sympathetic jurors acquitted her in under an hour. One even offered a handshake. Public opinion split. Some hailed technology and forensics as unassailable proof. Others whispered that a mild doctor seemed an unlikely butcher and that Spilsbury's certainty bordered on performance. Sensational headlines masked uneasy murmurs. Was justice rushed to satisfy a hungry press? Even as Crippen awaited the rope, seeds of doubt sprouted, seeds that would bloom again nearly a century later. November 23, 1910, dawned icy. Crippen ate a boiled egg, thanked warders for their kindness, and met his end on the gallows. Ethel slipped into obscurity, adopting new aliases, living quietly until 1967. For decades, textbooks cited the case as a triumph of modern policing. Yet the torso stored in a museum jar remained silent until molecular biology found its voice. In 2007, forensic scientist David Foran extracted mitochondrial DNA from a microscope slide prepared at the 1910 autopsy. Comparing it to samples from Cora's maternal relatives, he found no match. Even more startling, Y chromosome markers suggested the tissue was biologically male. Newspapers detonated with headlines, "Crippen, innocent?" Criminologists argued fiercely. Some proclaimed a historic miscarriage of justice. Others noted the sample was tiny, preserved in formaldehyde and susceptible to contamination. Still, the old narrative cracked. Podcasts rekindled interest. Docudramas recreated the cellar dig. Genealogists hunted living descendants for fresh DNA. In early 2025, a consortium led by geneticist Professor Turi King, famed for confirming Richard III's remains, published a review lambasting the 2007 test's methodology: single sample, inadequate controls, possible mislabeled slide. King urged new sequencing using modern protocols and multiple family lines before rewriting history. Meanwhile, other evidence still pointed toward Crippen. Pharmacy logs showed bulk hyoscine orders. A pajama top stitched with Cora's label was tucked beside the torso. Neighbors recalled screams the night she vanished. Some theorized Crippen aborted a botched surgery on his syphilis-stricken wife. Others claim police planted evidence to shore up a weak case amid public frenzy. Each fresh theory spawns books, debates, and late-night Reddit threads. So was Crippen a monster, a misguided lover, or history's first tech-era scapegoat? The jury of public opinion is still out, and new DNA could yet flip the verdict again. Regardless of guilt, the chase cemented three revolutions. First, it proved wireless telegraphy could shrink oceans to inches, launching an era where fugitives could be tracked in real time, a direct ancestor of today's geotagged phone pings. Second, it propelled forensic pathology into public fascination. Spilsbury's dramatic slides turned microscopic chemistry into courtroom theatre, inspiring generations of CSI pioneers. Third, it unveiled the media's power to shape justice. Fleet Street papers treated rumours as fact, minted Crippen memorabilia, and arguably sped the trial's tempo. Interpol's formation in 1923 cited trans-border cases like Crippen's as justification. During World War II, Allied spies used Marconi sets the size of briefcases, descendants of the Montrose transmitter. Modern Amber Alerts owe a conceptual debt to Kendall's wireless SOS. Every time a smartphone buzzes with a fugitive push notification, an echo of Captain Kendall's dots and dashes lingers in the circuitry. Pop culture hasn't let go either. Hitchcock contemplated a Crippen film. British hit Doctor Who name-dropped the case. Multiple musicals cast Ethel as tragic heroine. Each retelling tweaks motives, leaves the torso's identity ambiguous, and ensures the mystery lives another generation. And that looping cultural afterlife feeds right back into ongoing scientific curiosity, because closing the book would deprive us of one of history's juiciest cliffhangers. Crippen's saga began with a marriage imploding under ego and ambition, detonated into scandal by a missing wife, and vaulted into legend through radio waves and forensic showmanship. Over 110 years later, a single microscope slide still commands front-page headlines, reminding us how fragile truth remains when technology, media, and human bias collide. If next-gen DNA exonerates Crippen, we confront the chilling notion that the first global manhunt crowned the wrong villain. If it confirms guilt, we witness science circling back to vindicate the pathologist who held Victorian London spellbound. So, what do you think? Was the mild doctor a master manipulator who nearly outwitted the world, or a convenient fall guy ensnared by hysteria and prototype tech? Drop your theory in the comments and tell us which piece of evidence, torso scar, hyoscine, DNA, or disguise, tips the scales for you. Smash that like if you thrive on mysteries where history and cutting-edge science duel in real time, and subscribe for our next deep dive, because another century-old case is about to face 2025's forensic spotlight, and the verdict might astonish us all.